Pro Group Management. Workers' comp that works for you.
Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers on the broadcast today, part 2 of my interview with the Speaker of the Nevada Assembly, Steve Yeager. He's here for the whole show on an all-new Nevada Newsmakers.
When in Carson City, Nevada Newsmakers records in the conference room of the Nevada Builders Alliance. Coverage of the 2025 legislative session is brought to you by Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you. NV Energy, proudly serving Nevada, providing electricity to 2.4 million electric customers. The Retail Association of Nevada, looking out for business. And by Story County, helping build Nevada's future.
What is that?
That's the governor's funding bill for education.
It looks pretty flat. Wasn't there a plan to increase funding for our schools?
Yeah, but the governor's ignoring it.
We have to pass the plan.
Meet Nevada Health Link, Nevada's official health insurance marketplace. Your link to savings, selection, free assistance, and name brand health insurance, where 90% of enrollees lower the cost of their monthly premium. Everyone deserves access to quality health coverage, no matter your income or family size. Visit NevadaHealthLink.com. A few minutes could save you hundreds of dollars per month.
Nevada Health Link. Our plans are made for your plans.
Save money and take transit. Did you know you can ride the bus all day for less than what it would cost you for a gallon of gas? Plan your trip now by going to rtcwashoe.com.
I teach math every day, and something isn't adding up here. $1.65 billion for Hollywood and $380 million for a baseball team.
And let me guess, our students are only getting like $2.
That's correct.
Wow, they should pass the plan.
Yes, pass the plan.
This is Nevada Newsmakers with host Sam Shad, a no-holds-barred political forum. Now, from the Nevada Newsmakers broadcast headquarters, here is Sam Shad.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, coming to you from Carson City and from the home of the Nevada Builders Alliance. And this is part 2 of our interview with Steve Yeager. He's the Speaker of the Nevada Assembly. We're taping this on April 30, so it's the day before the Economic Forum comes out with the new numbers. You're sponsoring AB 500, which would create a new kind of banking in Nevada, payment banks. Explain what they are and why you're supporting this.
Yeah, interesting concept. If we pass this, we'll be the first state to ever do it. So here's the best way to explain it. You know how ubiquitous credit cards are now. Almost nobody takes cash, with the exception of Timbers down the street. They're cash only. But whenever you process your credit card, and Cracker Box, whenever you run a credit card transaction, there's a whole back-end infrastructure, right? There's a receiving bank. There's, the money has to move in the back channels. That requires a couple different banks, a payment merchant, and the bottom line is that costs money, right? Every transaction, there's a fee taken out, multiple fees taken out. Think about sometimes you go to a store and it says if you pay with a credit card, we're going to add 1.5%, 2%, $2 to your bill. So what this bill would do is it would allow us to charter a bank here in Nevada. It would not be like a traditional bank. You couldn't go in and get a loan or anything like that. It's not going to be like open to the public, but they would have access to that back-end federal infrastructure to run credit card transactions. So instead of having like 5 different entities in the background, we think we can compress that to 2 or 3 entities. And because of that, I believe the cost will be less. And so as a consumer, you're likely to not see that sign that says you have to cover the cost of the credit card transaction, but you're also likely to see prices go down because small businesses actually pay quite a bit of money for that back-end infrastructure.
You're literally talking thousands of dollars for these, and they're called swipe fees, correct?
Swipe fees, processing fees, merchant fees. This is the problem. There's like 6 or 7 different kind of fees. It's as complicated as prescription drug pricing when you think about the back end of that. And so, I think this is a way to bring this industry to Nevada. It wouldn't be limited to just transactions that happen here in Nevada. You could be a New York merchant and decide you want to actually use the Nevada Payments Bank instead of your typical credit card processor. So it's going to take some time to get it up. It's never been done before. It's kind of complicated. And so, we're working through some of those issues. What would our financial instruments division need to be able to make this happen? What would the Division of Insurance need, our bankers? But I think it has a potential to really bring down prices. And one of my favorite parts of the bill is, the state of Nevada will actually collect a little bit of that fee. The fees will be less, but the state will collect a little bit of that fee. So it's going to help the general fund in that way without increasing taxes on anybody, because you're already having those fees when you swipe your credit card. So that bill got out of the policy committee. It is sitting in the money committee because there are some fiscal notes on it, meaning it requires some money to implement it. But I think it's well worth the investment. It's just that it's never been done before, so people look at it and they say, what is this exactly? And I had to sort of run through it several times myself, but I think it has a lot of potential for the state. I would love for this state to be the worldwide hub of payment processing.
Okay, so would we be competing with MasterCard and Visa, for example?
Really more competing with the big banks. So think of, your Bank of America, your Chase, because, credit cards are still going to be issued by Visa and MasterCard. That's sort of proprietary. And so they'll still have a part to play in that chain, but taking out some of the really large multinational banks that essentially can charge whatever they want for this service, right? So I think of it as replacing those players, and I think we can streamline it. We can definitely get the prices down. So it should help small businesses, should help consumers, and should help the state general fund, all of which are good things.
Is there pushback at this point?
There really hasn't been pushback too much. The only pushback we've gotten is from some of the banks here that say we just want a level playing field. Like, we want to be able to get this charter as well and do this, and it would be open to everybody. So I think I've been able to satisfy some of those concerns. They just the banks that exist now didn't want special consideration for these banks, so they'll have to go through the process just like any other bank. And there's no restriction on existing banks saying we want to charter this new kind of bank in Nevada. So we're working through some of that, but that's really the only pushback that we've gotten. Although, frankly, I think a lot of people don't really understand what the bill does because it's pretty complicated. But if you talk about, credit cards, and everyone sees those little signs that says, think about when you buy gas, it costs more when you use a credit card, right? It says that right at the pump. So if we can bring those prices down and the back end fees down, I think it'll be a benefit.
Have you had discussions with the state treasurer on this?
A little bit with the treasurer, a little bit with the Secretary of State. I think they're excited about the prospect. And really, if we do this right, this really could be a hub. You could see a lot of these sort of payment banks be chartered here in Nevada because, they're not limited to Nevada. They're not limited to the United States. You could be a merchant over in Europe and say, I want to use the payment bank in Nevada because it's cheaper. And if you start thinking about all those credit card transactions, just think for a moment, all the credit card transactions that will happen today on the Las Vegas Strip. Everyone uses credit cards. So you start thinking about that amount of volume, it could really be a game changer for the state.
It seemed like, we've always been in competition to some extent with Delaware. Mm-hmm. It seems like this would be another thing because a lot of people are irritated with Delaware, especially Tesla. It would be a way to bring a lot more business to Nevada.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the beauty of this. Not only could we bring down costs, but bringing an entire new industry to the state. We talked about that earlier, right? We're always trying to diversify the economy. If we could become sort of a high-tech banking payment sector here, like why shouldn't we do that, right? We would be the first state to do it. And if you're the first one out there and you do it successfully, you're going to be able to build up more business that way. So I'm excited about the opportunity. It's got a long ways to go still. I know we're 30 days out from the end of session, but we have to figure out the money part, the regulatory part, because you need safeguards in there as well. But this idea is one that I think is long past due, given the frustration about the mounting fees, because those are only going to increase as we go along.
Yes, and just the cost of credit cards alone. When I got my first credit card, the interest rate was 12%, and I was the worst risk possible, and it was 12%. Now, if you're anywhere on the bad scale, you're looking anywhere from 26 to 30 plus percent.
Right.
That's insane. That's
right. And from the merchant perspective, you think about how many people go into like a convenience store and they pay with a credit card and it's like $3, $4, $5. The merchant's actually losing money on that transaction because the fees in the back end are not necessarily tied to the purchase price. It's a set fee. So if they're selling a bottle of water and someone's using a credit card and it's 99 cents, they're losing money on that transaction. But you have to accept credit cards. People generally don't carry cash and don't want to spend it.
To say the least. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back more with the Speaker of the Nevada Assembly after this timeout.
Your good times are at Tamarack Casino during the $150,000 Denim and Diamonds giveaways with cash and free play drawings every Thursday and Saturday, and $30,000 in grand finale giveaways Saturday, May 31st, including a top prize of $20,000 guaranteed. Your good times are at Tamarack Casino.
As you know, Reno is booming. Toll's development company is helping it grow with insightful design and development, building community with every project, adding beauty, adding excitement, emphasizing our shared humanity. Reno is becoming bigger. Toll's development is helping it become better, more livable, more enjoyable. To learn more, go to tollsdevelopment.com. tollsdevelopment.com.
Welcome to Story County, where history meets innovation and a pioneering spirit continues to shape our future. At the heart of the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, we power the future with global leaders in technology and manufacturing, driving progress that reaches far beyond our county lines. From advanced manufacturing to tech innovation, our industries are creating thousands of quality careers, fueling a vibrant economy that benefits every Nevadan. Our community is our foundation. Be part of a legacy built on bold ideas and boundless possibilities. Story County, helping build Nevada's future.
Welcome to the Ahern Boutique Hotel, where luxury and warmth come together in the heart of Las Vegas.
We take pride in offering a one-of-a-kind experience for both locals and tourists.
Join us for handcrafted cocktails and an unforgettable experience.
Joel's Chop House, the perfect place to savor views of the Las Vegas Strip.
Satisfy your cravings at the Ahern Chocolate Shop.
No smoking, no resort fees, and the parking is always free. The Ahern Luxury Boutique Hotel is your home away from home.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue our conversation with the Speaker of the Nevada Assembly, Steve Yeager. The governor has already threatened to veto some bills, like the physician-assisted suicide bill, known over the years as death with dignity. We had Joe Dahlia on the program a couple of days ago. When you hear the story of him and his father, you can't help but be moved. I have been, it's not supposed to be my responsibility to promote bills, but in this particular case, I just think it's insane that we don't allow people to make a choice about their own life and when they wish to end it. What are your thoughts on this? And despite the governor's threat of a veto, it still survived. Where are we?
Yeah, so I think this is the fourth. I think every session I've been in the legislature, this is my fifth session, we've considered this bill. I've been a co-sponsor before. I support the bill. I voted for it this time around. And you're right, the stories are just really compelling. And it's not just Assemblymember Dahlia, but when you hear folks come to the table and talk about it.
Including Republicans.
Including Republicans. That being said, it's a very personal bill. I mean, when you saw, I think I got 23 votes out of the Assembly, and both Republicans and Democrats supported it, and both Republicans and Democrats opposed it. So it really transcends political party. Obviously, we're aware of the statement that the governor made. He vetoed it last time. I think what we're trying to do in the legislature is pass what we believe is good policy. There's a separation of powers, right? We're the legislative branch. We don't answer to the governor. Obviously, we're aware of where he is on issues, but on an issue like this, I thought it was important enough, especially to Assemblymember Dahlia, to be able to run with this bill, and it did get bipartisan support. So we've gotten it out of the Assembly, and it's on its way over to the Senate. I'm not sure what'll happen over there. They have their own process, but I want to give the governor a chance to sign things. I don't think just because he vetoed it last session would mean he'd veto it this session. Now, he has said that, right? But I think we owe it to our constituents, and we think it's good policy to send it over there and put it on his desk. And if he vetoes it, he vetoes it, right? But I don't want to be dissuaded from trying because of that.
But because the margins are so thin for Republicans, if you have Republicans now moving towards this bill or openly supporting it, there's a possibility that you could override the governor's veto if that would happen. Now, I know that you don't want to have that conversation.
No, I
but
think
it's reality.
I think on this bill, though, there aren't enough votes, right? We didn't get 28 votes for that out of the Assembly, so I don't think there would be enough votes to override a veto. I mean, the question is, what about bills where we do have 28 or 29 Assembly members, or they have 14, 15 senators? Would we try to override a veto? I don't know. Maybe. I think it depends what the bill is and what the policy is. I mean, we've worked really hard to try to get bipartisan support for a lot of these ideas, and whether it's this bill, whether it's housing bills, whether it's healthcare bills, And, you know, we've made accommodations to Republicans as well to be able to do that. And I think what we're trying to demonstrate to the governor is like, these aren't just Democratic bills that we're sending over for you to veto. These are good policies. And we're working hard over here to make sure we can put something together that he actually will sign. Obviously, he's the governor. He can veto whatever he wants. He doesn't have to answer to us in that regard. But, you know, we're having those conversations with him about important policies. And I think it's important when we get Republicans on those. Whether we'd override a veto, hard to say. I mean, we actually have to pass the bill and get it over to the governor and have to come back to us in time to override a veto, and 30 days out from session. So I'm not sure if we're going to have that opportunity, but if we think it's good policy and he vetoes it, I think it's certainly a discussion we'll have with our colleagues, whether Democratic or Republican.
Well, and it is an election cycle already. And
always.
Yeah, yes, but I mean, we're seeing the advertisements on the air already, and candidates on both sides have said that they're running. Is it a good thing going into an election cycle to, have to veto 75 bills again, or is it where everybody sits down and works together?
Right.
Where is the country moving? I think there's a lot of people in this country at this point in time, not just in Nevada, saying, where's the middle? We need to get back to the middle where everybody's working together. Yes, there are things on both sides that we're never going to agree on, but can we get the majority done for the people?
Yeah, I really think we've tried to do that in the state, right? I mean, a lot of people think we're Washington, D.C. Here, we're not. I mean, we get along pretty well. I have conversations all the time with Minority Leader Hafen about his members' bills, our bills. So I think we're doing that in Nevada. I mean, we really are. Some of the things are just going to be partisan, we know that. But when you look at the bills that we pass, so few of them really are partisan when you look at the numbers. A lot of them are unanimous, a lot of them are bipartisan. So I think they do want us to work together as a legislature, which we're doing. And then the question is, can we work with the governor? And I think the answer is yes, of course we can work with him. We've got to find places where we can compromise, and we'll do that. But are there things that are important to us that we're going to send over and he's going to veto? Probably. I've invited, and I still invite any discussion. If I've asked the governor if he or his team look at a bill and it's coming through the session and they say, we don't like this bill, is there a way we can change a bill? Because we don't want these bills to be vetoed. We really don't. We think they're good policy. So, we'll try to make those accommodations where we can, but ultimately it's up to the sponsor of the bill too. Sometimes it's so important to them to get the bill as written, they would rather risk a veto than make changes. But I think you at least have to have that dialogue.
All right, let's take another break. We'll be right back after this.
Retail's impact on Nevada's economy? Enormous. 8,600 businesses, large and small, employing 145,000 workers. And last fiscal year, retail paid tax on nearly $60 billion in sales. We're the Retail Association of Nevada. We support retail, we help it grow, and we mean business.
RANNV.org.
Pro Group Management specializes in providing industries with the necessary components to satisfy and exceed workers' comp requirements. Every business has unique needs and specific regulations. Pro Group Management stays ahead of the curve, providing up-to-date services to keep your industry in top form. Discover how we simplify your tasks, improve efficiency, and reduce expense to keep you moving in a positive direction. Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
A power line is more than a power line. It's maintaining the bottom line for small businesses. It's keeping the assembly line moving for our workforce. For our brightest minds, it's meeting a deadline. It's on the front line with our heroes. And on the sidelines of the biggest games. It's a direct line to our loved ones. And it's a lifeline for the most vulnerable. There's a lot on the line.
The trucking industry is the most resilient link in the supply chain. And for over 90 years, the Nevada Trucking Association has been the voice for the men and women in the trucking industry. From Carson City to Washington, D.C., we advocate for policies to protect our trucking companies and keep commerce flowing. Because Nevada's and America's prosperity is tied to trucks. There's nothing without trucking.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue our conversation with Steve Yeager. He's the Speaker of the Nevada Assembly. This is the second of two parts. And so if you want to find the other part, feel free to go to nevadanewsmakers.com. Both of these shows will be up there by Friday. Nevada's legal cannabis industry seen taxable sales drop 17% since 2021. Cannabis lounges, where we thought those were going to take off like a rocket, not doing so well. There's really only one left inside Planet 13. Is there just too much taxation on the cannabis industry to where the illegal market is still thriving? And, you know, because you wouldn't go to a hooch manufacturer to buy your whiskey. You go to a liquor store, even though you're going to pay more. But are we charging too much?
I don't think we're charging too much. I mean, we did lessen the taxes last session a little bit by the way we structured it, but you know, I think demand is just down, and it's not just cannabis. Like alcohol demand is down right now too. So I think really what we saw during COVID was a lot of extra money in people's pockets towards the end of COVID, and a lot of time at home where they could drink, use cannabis, whatever. They weren't out, you know, living life other than being at home. And so I think we were always going to come down from that crest that we had during COVID.
You don't want to say a high.
I didn't want to say high because I thought it'd be a bad pun. But
yes. Hey.
But you know, I think that's gonna level out at some point. I mean, there have been sort of peaks and valleys in that industry, but you know, I think the economic uncertainty in general is just causing people to not spend as much money on those type of things, right? Happy to look at the tax structure, but when we passed cannabis, I mean, that was like one of the key components, and at the time it was, you know, Governor Sandoval who was in there when the voters passed recreational or adult use cannabis with that excise tax that would go to education. I mean, that was critical. He wasn't going to sign the bill otherwise. We can certainly look at that, but I just think there's a lot of competition out there in the market, and I think we're seeing a shift away really from alcohol and cannabis just as younger people come of age. The cannabis lounges have been concerning to me because that was my bill. I really worked hard to get that bill passed, and we only had 2 open, and now 1 has closed, so there's only 1 open. There are a lot of licenses out there, but folks have had a hard time opening up, and there's, I think, a couple reasons for that. The amount of money that you have to have, like the amount of capital on hand, is a really high amount, and some of the folks to have licenses just can't meet that amount. And then there's sort of finding a location, right? If you're going to rent space, you got to have a landlord that's okay with you having a consumption lounge there. So it's been a disappointment to me. I have heard in the background that there are some groups that are trying to put together capital to help some of these places. And you know, maybe the concept is not that we're going to have freestanding cannabis consumption lounges everywhere, but we're going to have, you know, a little Amsterdam block where there's like, you know, like we have Chinatown or that sort of thing. But it's been disappointing to me because I thought there was a lot of promise there, and it just hasn't worked the way we would like. So I think we will take another look at the regulations. That was another one where we had to put a lot in there to get it through the legislature. Everyone had their little piece that they wanted, and so we probably didn't get it right. So I think a second look is warranted.
Did it surprise you, after all of the fear-mongering over the decades about marijuana, when legalization came, it really did not create waves? We've not seen a huge increase in traffic accidents. We've not seen a huge increase in anything. It just seems normalcy.
It didn't surprise me at all. When I was advocating for it, I thought this is what would happen, right? And, you know, there was a lot of fear-mongering around cannabis, and part of it is, you know, they're just people who are opposed to it, period. But we do get this a lot at the legislature. We get people coming to us, they say, if you pass this bill, it's going to be the end of times, Revelations is going to come true. And it almost never happens, right? And so some of the lobbyists are just very good at scaring folks, but I think, you know, we all knew that this was how it was going to play out. It wasn't going to be some kind of chaos out in the streets. And I think it's actually been a net positive for the state, right? I mean, we've talked about it before. You get somebody who is really drunk, and they tend, you know, some of those people tend to get very aggressive and cause problems. That doesn't happen with cannabis. I mean, maybe the bag of Cheetos or Fritos are at risk if you had too much cannabis, but you're not going to go out and be a violent person in the community. So I'm really happy that it's played out that way, but it played out the way I thought it would, and I think the way the advocates have been saying it would.
So where are you with artificial intelligence at this point, and how it regards to the legislature?
Yeah, you make some great points there, and I think you have to use it as a tool, but it can't just take over and do the project, right? So I think as a legislature, the way we're looking at it, remember, we're only an every other year legislature, and if I'm being honest, we're probably not equipped to really handle AI regulation as the legislature, at least not in a comprehensive way. I think what we're trying to do is put in those guardrails that you're talking about. It's okay to use AI, but when you're making a decision based on the output, there has to be a human being there to look at it. So, we're doing things like you can't reject somebody for a mortgage or housing just based on sort of an AI equation. Like if you want to have it spit out a yes or no, but someone's got to go look at that, right? Because the information that comes out is only as good as the information that goes into the system. So I think when, as a legislature, think of it, we want to put the framework of guardrails. Here's the ways you can use AI, here's where you can't, and you need to do a risk analysis to make sure that there's not harm. But we're not really able to get into the nitty-gritty of regulating that. I think very few of us really understand it, although AI has been around a very long time. People don't know that. It's more prominent now because of what it can do. And to your point, that's one of the best parts. So sometimes you just need that spark to get started with writing something, or I'll use it for speeches sometime. Write me a speech on this topic, and it'll spit out 2 pages, and I use about 3 paragraphs, but it gives me some ideas. And so I think that's the way we want to see it used in the state. We don't want it to be a crutch where you're taking human decision-making out of the equation.
Well, it's funny because when I've been doing certain research, things have popped up that were inaccurate, and it asks you if you want to go back in and so I go back in and put in correct. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, you're absolutely right. And I'm like, oh, holy moly. The last thing I want to be doing is being smarter than AI. But, but you have to be.
You think about those AI systems, basically they've just scraped the entire internet of information, right? And so again, there's a lot of misinformation out there already on the internet. So that's necessarily going to get scooped into AI. So I think folks just have to be realistic about the output, because sometimes you do ask a question, you get a wildly incorrect answer, and nobody can figure out why that answer came about. And so I think you just have to be aware that it's not the be all end all. It is a tool, it'll help us, but it's not going to take over the world.
I hope before the end of session you have another few minutes to squeeze out to come back and see us. I really appreciate all this time today. I know how busy you are.
Thanks so much for having me, Sam. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. And we'll be right back.
All hail the $200,000 Cash is King giveaways at Carson Valley Inn. Weekly prize drawings including thousands in cash and free play. And 2 big grand prize giveaway events, each with a $15,000 cash winner guaranteed. Only at the Carson Valley Inn.
Each day, the Children's Advocacy Alliance partners with leaders, legislators, and families across Nevada to improve children's health, education, economic well-being, and safety. We recognize Nevada will be no better than the state of its children. Be a part of this change. Be a supporter of the Children's Advocacy Alliance. For more information, go to CAANV.org.
The Nevada Builders Alliance has been protecting the interests of the construction industry for over 50 years. Our programs save members thousands of dollars every year and allow them to provide much-needed benefits to their employees. Our industry also allows Nevada to grow. If you're thinking about a career in the construction industry, reach out. And if you haven't thought of a career in construction, what are you waiting for? We are the Nevada Builders Alliance.
It happens. And when it does, there's UMC Quick Care.
When in Carson City, Nevada Newsmakers records in the conference room of the Nevada Builders Alliance. Coverage of the 2025 legislative session is brought to you by Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you. NV Energy, proudly serving Nevada, providing electricity to 2.4 million electric customers. The Retail Association of Nevada, looking out for business. And by Story County, helping build Nevada's future.
Thanks for watching Nevada Newsmakers come to you from Carson City, from the headquarters of the Nevada Builders Alliance. We'll see you on the next broadcast. Thanks for watching.